Canadian miners are in focus this year in light of the Ukraine-Russian war and increasing demand for electric vehicles as governments and businesses secure their supply of critical metals. We reached out to David Patterson, CEO of Quebec Nickel, to discuss his work in the region and also put a spotlight on nickel, which we believe is an underappreciated critical metal for the green economy. Hey, David, how's it going?
Good morning, Dwayne. Really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We're really glad to have you here. So for our investors who may not be familiar with you, David, can you give us a quick background on Quebec Nickel?
On the high level, what we did was we assembled a package of properties that I believed had the best opportunity to make a nickel discovery. We financed the company in 2021 to the tune of about $8 million. We started a drill program in February, announced our first discovery holes in May of 2022. These three holes were, they will change the textbooks on nickel in the Abitibi because they are elevated nickel, copper, cobalt, platinum, palladium from surface down to about 30 meters.
So, David, what's happened since Quebec Nickel's last press release?
Last release was on October 19th with the announcement that we think we've found a new zone or an extension of the existing zone at Fortin. From then, we've also put out that we have a little science that we've done, which is to find out where the nickel reports to. And this is what if you're getting a nickel concentrate that you want to send to the smelter, you want to know if you have nickel and sulfides. And one of the bits of work that we've done is to prove that we actually have nickel and sulfides and not nickel and silicates.
So you mentioned nickel and sulfides. Why is it important to distinguish nickel in sulfides from nickel in silicates?
Great question. So nickel and silicates is what you find in the majority of nickel deposits in the Abitibi. And it'll be anywhere from 30 to 60% of the nickel concentration will be in the silicates. The important distinction between ours is all of the nickel that we have found is called pentlandite, which is a nickel sulfide. The importance of a nickel in sulfides is that it's an easily understood process to take this class 1 nickel and convert it into nickel cathode. Nickel cathode is important for EVs, batteries, etc.
And what makes the target areas of the Ducros-Graboros and the DUMC so important for nickel discoveries?
One of the things about nickel is that there has to be a certain amount of chemistry and physics that have to come together to be able to create a nickel deposit. So the right rock types, gabbros, which are nickel bearing, and ultramafics, nickel bearing, come into contact with sulfur bearing rocks under extreme pressure and temperature. They melt the sulfur bearing rocks, and what ends up happening is what precipitates out is a nickel sulfide, copper sulfide, and all the other metals that go with it. But the most important two, and where all the value really is a nickel first and then copper. This area has been sadly underexplored, and I think it's because the rock types don't lend themselves to gold discoveries or VMS discoveries, which have been the mainstay of discoveries in the Abitibi for the last 110 years.
Why do you emphasize infrastructure in the Abitibi as being so important?
Well, one of the things about infrastructure, it really reduces your risk of making a decision to go into production. And I know these are early days, and to talk about production seems far off, but if you want to make a discovery and you're thinking that you're in the high Arctic, you need 10 million tons of 3% nickel, or you're down here in the Abitibi that has access to roads, rail, and power, and a workforce, then you have lowered that risk considerably. And allows us to make decisions that say, okay, we don't have to build a railway to our property. There's already one nearby. We don't have to build hydro to our property. It's already nearby. A road transects the property, and the property is crisscrossed with logging roads. So lots of access to our property, which really reduces the cost of exploration, the cost of discovery, and the cost of going to production.
So on a macro level, can you highlight why Class 1 nickel is so important?
Class 1 nickel that's the only metal that trades on the London Metal Exchange that is nickel. And then, there's other types of nickel, but nickel from sulfides is class 1 nickel. And class 1 nickel is what can be easily converted into nickel cathode, and that could be a battery or other parts stainless steel for cars. So as we ramp up our use of EVs or electric vehicles, we downplay the internal combustion engine. We need to electrify the world. And to do that, you need copper, but you also need nickel. And when you look at what's in a car battery, even though they're lithium, the major metals are nickel, copper, and cobalt. And this is why these have become critical elements. And that the US government has actually announced this weekend that they're going to start financing nickel development in foreign jurisdictions like Canada. So this is why class 1 nickel is so important.
So David, can you summarize the highlights of your 2022 exploration efforts to date?
2021, we raised almost $8 million, started deploying that in Q1 with one drill. We made a discovery that we announced in May of 2022 of 3 holes that have certainly elevated nickel, copper, cobalt, platinum, palladium. We brought in a second drill to do continuity drilling along, we call that the Fortan area. We're doing continuity drilling to see how far north, south, east, and west it goes. And then we announced the granddaddy hole of all, hole 29, which was, I have it here on my board, 1.4% nickel, 1.49 copper, and almost 3 grams of platinum, palladium, gold. It's an extremely rich intercept over 11 meters. We went 1 drill in the spring, 2 drills in the summer, and now we have 3 drills on the property. We're focusing on continuity drilling of Fortan, and now we're over on the west side of our property in the Ducro ultramafic. And what we're looking for is to see if that's the right rock assemblages that would come together to form a new nickel discovery.
Excellent, thanks.
Well, Dwayne, as you can see, I can talk endlessly about nickel, and I can talk endlessly about our company. It's been an amazing ride. You just see the acceleration that we're going through. When I say in roughly 10 months, we've gone from 1 drill hole to, I don't know how many, maybe 50 drill holes, and over 20,000 meters of drilling. Look forward to 2023. It's going to be exciting. Please follow us, and please go to our website, quebecnickel.com.